I am 28 years old, which means that I don't know jack about Five Nights at Freddy's. By the time that game was really popping off, I was just hitting college. 10 years ago, think about that. And in my college era, I decided to call myself Anders, not Ludwig, because I thought it'd be cooler, and I thought I should spend more time doing things in a real life and not video games. I've since gone full circle in the past 10 years, and I've been doing a bit of catch-up. I've figured out what Skibbity Toilet is, I've even played a bit of Minecraft, but I've never dabbled into the world of Five Nights at Freddy's. So today, boys, the plan is simple. We are going to find out everything about the Five Nights at Freddy's lore by watching a bunch of game theory videos. And at the end, I am hoping to talk to MatPat directly to distill within a minute what the Five Nights at Freddy's lore is all about, and he will determine whether we are actually right or wrong. The first video I have is MatPat's first ever Five Nights at Freddy lore video. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to watch them. Then we have MatPat's Ultimate Timeline, which is a series of 4 different videos. And I know this one is probably mostly not valuable, but I think it'll be interesting to watch the first theory, because I'm pretty sure this video that is damn near 10 years old kind of kicked off the idea of like really dissecting FNAF lore. So this is the game I played. I remember playing this game.
Oh my gosh, I am so scared right now. Oh god, I have never played a game this intense.
Okay, I'm gonna actually end it all, MatPat. I cannot handle the static being 8,000 times louder than your quiet voice. I can't handle it.
I'm so scared right now. I'm so scared. Can you tell how scared I am right now?
Okay, I actually can't watch this. I actually can't I can't watch this. I can't watch this. Out of context, it just looks like he's coming. I can't watch. That's crazy.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where fear is our middle name. If you were just to play the game straight through 5 days, the story would actually come across as pretty superficial. You're the new night guard watching the security cameras at a Chuck E. Cheese-style restaurant called
That's what I...
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Yes.
4 animatronics roam the halls at night because the owners don't want their servos to lock up.
Purple
Bad
one and
news
the yellow
is,
one.
You can't let them near you or else they'll kill you on the spot
Yes.
because you look like a naked endoskeleton. Ow, ow! Show them those circuits! Apparently, one of them bit someone back in 87, presumably 1987. And the past guard leaves you recorded phone messages to act as your tutorial. That is, as much as he could record before he got himself killed. And that's it. Stay 5 nights, collect your paycheck, done. Game over, play something new. But playing it that way is doing the game a huge disservice.
Wait, that's what I did. Okay, see that? This is literally, he just recapped what I recapped all I know about Five Nights at Freddy's. And now he's saying I'm a big dumbass for that. Okay.
Here's the rest of the story. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, once a popular restaurant, fell into hard times when 5 children went missing there after being lured to a back room by a man dressed in a character costume. Though a suspect was caught and convicted, the bodies of the children were never recovered. The pizzeria was also threatened with shutdown due to sanitation complaints.
I'm sorry. An employee dressed as a character lured 5 kids and murdered them, and they almost got shut down due to sanitation complaints? Our priorities are backwards. Who gives a fuck about the sanitation, buddy? One is much bigger deal here.
In addition to the core 4 robots, Chica, Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy, there's also a
Chica, Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy.
5th, unofficially referred to as Golden Freddy. According to the game's creator, the place is
Scott Cawthon. There's an explanation for why the characters are haunted, but it's hidden within the game.
Indeed haunted by what we can only assume to be the spirits of the 5 lost children. So
the children who were murdered are the 5 animatronics.
who is your character? How's he fit in? Why does he stay for 5 nights when he's very clearly confronting the possibility of death? What more can we know about this
We're trying to go band for
Golden
band,
Freddy?
stack
And
it
most
up.
importantly, what is the complete story behind 5 Nights at Freddy's? December 1993, Aurora, Colorado. 10 p.m. Tuesday night at a local Chuck E. Cheese. After a family birthday party runs long, manager Margaret Kohlberg and teenage employees Sylvia Crowell, Ben Grant, Colleen O'Connor, and Bobby Stevens are forced to stay late to close up shop. But as Margaret tallies receipts in the back, Bobby scrubs down the kitchen, and the other 3 work outside in the main arcade. Unknown to any of the 5, there's actually a 6th person locked in the building with them, waiting silently in the darkened restrooms. A 19-year-old named Nathan Dunlap.
Is this real? Is this real?
That year, Nathan had begun working there as a cook, dough master, before getting fired in July after a disagreement over his hours. Now, 5 months later, he was back. And
Dude, is he just, he's talking about a murder case like it's a game lore dump. Fuck, dude. I didn't know about this.
10:05, he left the bathroom, pulled out a small caliber handgun, and proceeded to execute everyone in the building. Spurred on by the building security footage, police were at his home a few hours later, where he was promptly arrested. Eventually, he was tried and sentenced to death, but his story re-entered the news just recently as his punishment has been postponed, leading people to debate whether he's able to sleep soundly, knowing that his execution has been delayed. This is a tragic story, a disgusting waste of human life, and one that I won't joke about or make fun of in any way, but I want to address it because I have a strong suspicion that this story is the one that inspired Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's look at the facts. First, I don't think that there's any doubt
because it was at a Chuck E. Cheese and 5 people were murdered, and there's 5 people who were murdered in the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and there's 5 animatronics. I think I can connect the dots here. I'm not dumb.
So 5 victims, 5 suits. Seems like a slam dunk.
Sure.
But nowhere does it say that all 5 were murdered, only that they went missing and couldn't be found. Also, the trouble a lot of people have with this theory is Golden Freddy. Why is that guy so limp and lifeless? So unlike the others. It's weird, until you go back to the real life story. Yes, there were 5 people shot that night in Chuck E. Cheese, which matches the 5 victims in Freddy's story. But of those, 1 survived. Bobby, the one from the kitchen, miraculously survived the shot to his jaw. After he was knocked to the floor by the bullet, he went limp, played dead, to avoid the killer coming back to finish the job. And that relates exactly to the advice you're given on night 3 by the phone guy.
Try playing dead. You know, go limp.
The original theory was that Five Nights at Freddy's was based off a real murder case at a Chuck E. Cheese in Colorado where 5 people were murdered by a former employee. That's the original one. So now, let's fast forward to less than a year ago, where MatPat did a FNAF The Ultimate Timeline, which is a 4-part series of videos that goes over everything.
Today, we end the torment. 19 books, 11 games, 8 whole years.
19 books, 11... There's more books than games?
Kinda nervous. I haven't attempted a timeline video on this franchise since 2018. Back in the days when Mike was the crying child, Afton coming back was actually a surprise, and Fazgoo wasn't a phrase I'd...
What the fuck is any of that?
So sit back, grab some popcorn, or your pitchforks if you're the type to get upset when I say something controversial.
That's my chat right now. My chat, it's actually all pitchforks right now. You should have watched Wendigoon. You guys are actually cringe. Sorry, when you're actually getting your FNAF lore dump, could you please watch Wendigoon in his 6-hour video and not the MatPat game theory lore? It's actually incorrect, and I don't want you to get the lore incorrect because this is very important to me. I'm cringing. You're making me cringe.
I present to you the story of a loving, obsessive father who slowly descended into madness and along the way discovered the secret to eternal life.
Why is that bunny kind of hot?
Our story begins not in the 1980s, or even in the 1970s,
The 60s.
but all the way back in the 1930s. People were tired and they were hungry, but as they traveled, there was one thing that could lift their spirits. A simple roadside attraction called Fredbear's Singin' Show. The ads were plastered all over town, but it left a permanent impression on one little boy,
William
capturing his
Afton.
imagination in a way that nothing
William
else
Afton.
had. One little boy named Billy. That was his nickname at
Willie
least, but
Billy.
his parents like to call him William. William Afton. The bear could dance, it could sing. For decades, William dreamed of recreating that moment of bringing a musical bear to life, but how?
Go in a
William was
costume.
inspired by the work of Walt Disney, who throughout the 50s and 60s was pioneering the use of mascot suits throughout his theme park. The big innovation? Suits with 5 fingers.
I'm sorry, this is a quick aside. I always love listening to like technological updates in like the 18 or 1900s because they sound so simple. It's like, oh, dude, we figured out that actually you need your hands. No. So what we figured out is that actually if you wash your hands before putting your hands into someone's body in surgery, it's better. Stuff that's like nowadays, like, yeah, no fucking shit. Back then, they're like, no, we actually solved this.
To appeal to the kids, and for copyright reasons, he changed Fredbear from a realistic brown animal to a cartoonish yellow bear with a purple hat and bow tie. But feeling like one character wasn't enough, he added another friend, a yellow rabbit with a purple vest and matching tie named Bonnie the Bunny. Bonnie and Fredbear would perform on stage to small but enthusiastic crowds. Other people saw the success of his idea and they wanted in. Enter Chica's Party World, a rival restaurant starring performing animal characters. His idea, except they did it better. William may have been the first, but obviously he wasn't the best.
Why is he Madge? Like, yeah, they bit your shit, but you also bit somebody's shit. Like, Fredbear was literally a one-to-one copy. You just changed the color to yellow. A yoink and twister cannot be mad that somebody yoinked and twisted.
All of them able to freely turn and talk and dance on their own, no human required. It was like magic. Magic that came from the mind of a brilliant creator named Henry Emily. A rocking band of characters featuring a yellow chicken thing with a southern drawl named Chica, backed by a band of other country-themed characters, including a pig with a banjo, an upbeat frog from the local swimming hole, and a brown bear with a heavy southern accent. Wait. A bear? But bears were his animals. Why not a cow or a horse? Something to fit the country theme a bit better. Why'd it have to be a bear? And adding insult to injury, they had the nerve to call this thing Ned Bear, a direct copy of his own Fredbear.
Whoops, that's gonna leave a mark.
No, that was not okay. Afton's jealous admiration.
Okay, all right. You know what? That's a little more dog.
Eventually, his restaurant would go bankrupt, only to get bailed out by, of course, Henry Emily. Another insult, another humiliation that William wouldn't soon forget.
He was humiliated that he got, you could have just rejected the offer, but okay, he was humiliated. No, I guess I get that. That would be humiliating.
With the two franchises now merged into one, it was the best of both worlds. Afton's ideas with Henry's robotic expertise. The two men decided to launch under a new name, Fredbear's Family Diner, a pizza chain that would eventually come to feature.
And he gets naming rights. And he's still Madge? Like, William, grow up.
They decided to stick with Fredbear as the headliner, considering the yellow bear was easily identifiable as a brand and because he was the original performing animal mascot. Afton appreciated that. In 1983, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza launched, giving a dedicated home to all this new supporting cast of characters. Chica the Chicken, Bonnie the Blue Bunny, Foxy the Pirate, and of course the headliner, a brown Freddy Fazbear. Business was good.
Okay. So the original location has the Golden Bear. Then they made a spin-off called fucking Fazbear's and this is the game I know.
It did bother him that the one original character that he created, the one that he himself played, Golden Bonnie, got passed over for inclusion in that cartoon show. The only character in the roster of regulars to get ignored for the show, but
he's actually so fucking whiny, I'm like getting annoyed, but
other than that, things were going smoothly. He had himself a wife, 2 sons, a daughter. He had a thriving business. And best of all, he was able to learn the craft of robotics from the man that he both loved and hated, Henry.
I feel really good about part 1. And Henry Emily, I will say, sounds like the GOAT. You know, fucking really crafted his own original place, inspired by something. Then became partners with a person, I feel like unnecessarily. And then fucking brought him in, gave him naming rights. Like, if you think about it, William Afton's like, dude, I like bear. And that's the end of, like, everything he is. He was basically a kid. He saw a bear. He goes, I like bear. And then he made bear. And then he's like, what else do I make? And he's like, bunny. And then like, what? And then what? And then he made a fledgling business that started failing. And he's like, but I made bunny. It's like, who gives a shit, dude?
Together, William and Henry had been able to take the hybrid suit idea and make it into a reality. They called their new invention the Springlock suit. And fittingly enough, it was symbolic of the partnership between these two men. A human suit as designed by William that could become a freestanding Henry-style robot. But because it was still new tech with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited, restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras and speakers were hidden throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy, Psychic Friend Fredbear. I mean, plushy Fredbear. But since cameras just weren't enough to raise a kid, he also left childcare duties to his eldest son, Michael. He and his friends would take his scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics. That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him. His brother squirmed, screamed, kicked, and fought, but just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the The mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring locks inside the body had been triggered by the boy's movements, and they'd immediately clamped down. The wriggling stopped. The boy went limp, but it was just a prank. It was meant to be funny. As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words, a small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush, were a firm and committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together. This
He wasn't even there?
It would just take time. Time that, right now, he just didn't have. His young son's heart flatlined as the boy faded into the inky unknown of the afterlife.
Fuck you mean you don't have time? He's dead now.
The death of this little boy sent the family spiraling. His wife, crippled with grief, was so distraught that all she could do was sit and watch TV. But his son, Michael, was far worse. Some nights, Michael would even go so far as to break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there. As for William himself, he disappeared into his work and his drinks. Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite. He found himself going there more and more frequently, spending longer and longer amounts of time there. The bar gave him a place to think, to remember, to reflect and stew on how Henry had stolen his idea for an animal-themed restaurant.
You're still on that! Are we being fucking for real? Your kid died and you're still on that. That's crazy. William Afton is like the least intelligent character I've ever come across, ever. Like, actually just like a 99% petty, like 1% stupid.
Henry had taken his son from him.
What? Henry took his son. Aren't you the one who wanted to innovate on the animatronics and make them partial human, partial fucking robot?
William ordered one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't go home. Drunk and angry, William raced back to the restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind, only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside of the building. This was his chance to get back at the man that had humiliated him all those years ago.
No, you're not going to kill his daughter because your son died and somehow you've conflated your son's death to be the fault of Henry when it's actually your fault being a negligent parent and allowing your eldest son to raise your youngest child improperly. There's no way that's going to happen.
While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley. It felt good. He felt free. Charlie's death would remain on the books as a random act of violence. And though Henry had suspicions about William, there was no physical evidence. Nothing that could link him back to the crime.
This is crazy. It's so unbelievable that Henry's like, yeah, no, I think my business partner killed my daughter, but like, you know, we just got to keep working together, honey. Like, business is booming, you know. It's like, if you even had a slight inkling, you're like, just like fucking, you know, move. You gotta leave.
In the weeks that followed, Fredbear's family diner would close for good. 2 high-profile deaths around the restaurant with 2 grieving owners in such a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle. Besides, Freddy Fazbear's was still open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired to that location. And while Henry slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics, for all those pet projects that were a little bit too experimental for the regular operations of the pizzeria. The first of these experimental projects was a secret workshop under his house, a veritable bunker, which allowed him to work while still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras.
Am I crazy? Why does he give a fuck about monitoring his kids? Who is he lying to? Because one died? He saw it on camera. And you know what he did? He said, "Oh man, yo, sorry dude, I'll fucking like try to help you out later on." It did nothing.
But cameras weren't enough. He needed to solve the runaway Michael problem. He had to keep him in the house. He couldn't have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it extreme? Maybe. But then again, this was the boy who had killed his son.
So the way he's keeping Michael indoors, but just by making like the most horrifying creation ever to like follow him everywhere he's going. Does he know at this time that his son is literally so traumatized by the murder of the youngest son that he sees hallucinations of the animatronics already? He's literally like, dude, you know that thing that you like hallucinate? Dude, what if I made it?
Michael would never forget these either. Years later, as a security guard, he would still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But
Michael was the security guard? What the fuck?
June 26th, 1985. Putting on the golden Bonnie suit, he lured children one by one to the back room of the pizzeria when no one was looking. At first, he was cautious. He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. Susie was the first. You never truly forget your first.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But where to hide the bodies? He couldn't sneak out. Someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they'd never be found and where they'd never leave the building. They had to be stuffed inside of the suits. No one maintained those things anyway except for him. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their house was burning. They're just being kidnapped. Until the last one where all pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car.
The body of Cassidy was far more bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one he shouldn't have killed. The animatronics left, he
You know what? You know what? Say what you will about the other murders. Okay, those were fine. But that one? That was too far.
Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring kids to the back, but they couldn't convict him. They had no bodies, and his face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they had was circumstantial at best, and so he walked away a free man.
Really? Would that hold up? I don't know. I'm not a fucking lawyer, but I feel like if I had video of a guy in a mask who lures children back there, and then every single child lured dies, to be like, Your Honor, anybody could have been wearing the mask.
Henry knew the truth. In these murders, he saw his daughter Charlie all over again. So he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria. Henry would keep the franchise quiet for 2 years. This would not happen again. This could not happen again. How could he protect the kids? Finally, he developed a solution. He would implement an even more extreme security system in the form of new animatronics. Toy animatronics, inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago.
So Henry Emily's like, dude, I think my fucking co-owner is like murdering all these children. What do I do? I'll make a toy. Like, what? Buddy didn't think like, what if I fucking like get him arrested? Because if he's not around, then the kids probably won't die. Here's the thing. If I was fucking convinced that Aiden had murdered 5 children, and not only 5 children, but more children, one of them mine, I would take him out vigilante style. I wouldn't be like, let me make a gizmo and a gadget.
And the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines in local newspapers. Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton. Freddy's was back, and without him? That was his idea, his character. Henry was, yet again, trying to cut him out of the picture. No.
That's crazy! That's crazy! You murdered 6 children! How is he still on the... Dude, what? You're doing a Freddy's without me? Like, how is he on that?
Afton would go back, not as an owner or co-founder. He would go back in the one place that they would least suspect him, a lowly day shift security guard. And there it was, buried in the back of parts and services mixed in with the old withered animatronics was the golden rabbit. With the yellow security badge still on his chest, he used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
1987. 5 more kids. He didn't know what felt better, getting back into the...
That's crazy. That's crazy. Henry Emily has to be the dumbest motherfucker I've ever learned about ever. Like, he reopened the restaurant and 5 kids are murdered and he's like, yeah, man. What could we do? You said he was the GOAT? He was the GOAT till he became a dumbass motherfucker.
He didn't even try to hide his crime this time, just meant more blood on Henry's hands. He'd failed to protect the kids again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was sure that this would get it to close. Good, if he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new pizzeria opened, he would be there. But as he sat in his bunker, something else started to linger in William's mind. He had seen something strange. The old withered animatronics, they had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet. It was almost like those old robots were trying to save the kids. The following day, the news would report a security guard getting bitten by one of the animatronics during the day shift. Was that bite meant for him? William?
The bite of 87! I don't know what it means, but it's exciting. This is it, baby. We are fucking learning now.
He needed to create something new, something brand new. He needed to create his own pizzeria. Circus Baby's Pizza World. This would be the place where he could continue his work. No longer just murdering, experimenting. He needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for his work. With that goal in mind, he designed a new breed of animatronic. They could incapacitate and contain them with zero direct input from him. It was brilliant. He was brilliant. First, Ballora was an homage to the woman who left him. Now she would never leave him again. The second, the titular baby, was designed with his baby in mind, Elizabeth, his youngest child.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? She's so pretty and shiny.
The day before Circus Baby's Pizza World opened, she disobeyed. She didn't listen. Left alone with Baby, she got too close. The animatronic ripped in half and swallowed her whole. Scared?
Dude, what? I thought his whole thing was like, I'm not gonna murder now. I just want to figure out what's going on with it. What the fuck? It just, what? And why is she British? William's British? That doesn't make no damn sense. The dude's gotta be old as fuck now, right? He was a kid during the Great Depression in the 30s. So he's born in like, at the very latest, like 35. And we're in 87, so he's 52 right now? And his daughter's that old? Or young, I mean? So he's on that Robert De Niro wave, eh?
By the time Afton found her, it was too late. She was gone. He immediately canceled the launch of Circus Babies under the guise of a gas leak. As he sat there at the foot of the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed. Baby had been built with blue eyes, but now they were emerald green, the same color as Elizabeth's. Could this all be connected to the free-moving animatronics that he had seen at Freddy's? He had to know more. His mourning turned to excitement. He had to return to where it all started. William repeatedly snuck into the old, broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him, one by one dismantling them, robbing them of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself. But he had to know for sure. Not knowing what else to do, William melted the robotic parts down. 5 animatronic endoskeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this living metal to his
Phasgoo!
He picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal and injected the goo into Funtime Freddy's twisted, wiry endoskeleton. And suddenly, the coils came to life. Like snakes writhing in a pile, what had once been cold, lifeless metal moved and jolted on its own. He'd done it! He had unlocked the secret to life itself. Except something was clearly wrong. The movements were erratic. They were violent, angry. Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else. Something mindless and frantic. As he searched the old pizzeria one more time for any remaining scraps of metal, the ghosts attacked. His past victims come to collect their due, all led by Cassidy. The 5 lined up and blocked the door. He panicked as Cassidy approached. How do you stop something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in their death in the first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would regain his power over them just like the day that they died. He was the genius. He was the one in the suit. He was the one in charge. The spring lock snapped into place. Maybe it was just fate coming to collect its due. He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white-hot pain as hundreds of metallic pins and gears stabbed into his body from all sides. All he could do was collapse, blood slowly oozing out of...
It is frustrating that this is the 3rd time someone has activated a spring lock to get their head fucking snapped. I get when the kids fell for it. I get that. But the dude who made the device fell for that? Really?
It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him. A security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage. And who else would it be other than Henry? Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry would see him. They were partners after all. Henry entered the secret room. His eyes fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red. And Henry, saying nothing, turned and walked away.
This is just to inform all employees that due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed at most locations.
And so there Afton would sit, hanging on for 30 years, trapped behind the walls with an iron will that refused to die.
Whoa, baby! baby. All right, okay.
Michael knew his father sometimes traveled for work, disappearing for days on end, but usually there was some sort of notice, a phone call, a post-it, something. His father was a careful and guarded man. He held his cards close to his chest, and as such, William had prepared him in the event that something like this ever happened. Normally, his father kept his home office locked, but in the event of an unexpected, prolonged absence, Michael had been instructed to enter his father's office and look behind an empty set of shelves mounted in the corner of the room. The shelf swung open and revealed a giant industrial elevator, one that led straight down into an underground bunker. Here it was, mapped directly underneath the floor.
That's huge. That is huge. Michael's dumb as fuck. No offense. Dad, why are there construction workers outside? No, it's the neighbors.
His father had secrets. Suddenly, the days of William being locked inside of his office made sense. He'd been here the entire time. And that's when he found her. At the end of the facility, Circus Baby, his father's pride and joy. Except something was different about her. She wasn't like the others. The way she talked, the stories she told. This wasn't just a robot. She was alive, somehow. And not only was she alive, she also felt familiar. Was this his sister? William's baby girl?
He knows his sister's dead, right? Does he not know how she died? How brief did William keep this shit? Dude, she's fucking gone. I don't know where she is.
William wasn't just a lame, overworked father. He was a monster,
Yeah.
toying with life itself.
It's true, he
Suddenly,
was.
everything clicked. He frantically looked around the room, blinking human heads on poles staring back at him. Green eyes, his sister. Blue eyes, his brother. Closed eyes, his mom. William was working down here trying to make believable humans, literally rebuilding the family that they had both lost. The small little girl robots with their British accents roaming the hallways of this underground facility suddenly took on a whole new context.
Ew.
Was William building clones of his sister? They seemed to know him, after all, to react to his presence.
They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
Why is he British? It doesn't make any fucking sense. I know I've been stuck on this, but it literally makes no sense at all.
Led by the voice of Circus Baby, he marched through the now empty halls of the Funtime Auditorium. He would lead them. He would protect them. And finally, he would be able to forgive himself for the killing of his brother so many years. That violent extraction arm? Michael had seen that one in the pile of blueprints. Something about heat rendering the magical silver metal inside useless. In reality, prior to getting himself spring-locked and put behind the wall, William's methods had become increasingly sophisticated, with a mechanized arm that could infuse new bodies with a soul. William could finally give and take away life. The only thing he needed were the bodies. Michael was gonna be the hero to help these animatronics, all right. He was gonna help the haunted tubes and wires of these animatronics escape, just not in the way that he anticipated. His sister had lied to him. Another game of pretend. The scooper plowed forward, digging its extraction arm into his body. As he heard his bones ripping through his flesh, Michael blacked out.
But something is wrong with me. I should be dead.
For the next several months, Michael's life was not his own. He was forced to comply with the tangle of wires and spirits that lived inside of him. His body felt like an overfilled balloon begging to burst as day by day, week by week, his flesh began to sag and discolor. He was a walking, talking, rotting corpse, alive, but wishing he wasn't. He was a puppet, a walking shell. And while he did his best to conceal his fate, there was only so much a man filled with robot spaghetti could do. The entity in his innards would eventually leave, but by that point, the damage had been done. His decaying flesh stank, turning him into a literal purple guy. Michael had to correct for the sins of his father. He had to make things right. Michael would burn Fazbear Entertainment to the ground. I mean, what else could you do when your skin was permanently purple?
Yeah, that's fair.
Michael's strategy was simple. He would apply for night security guard positions at the old defunct pizzeria locations. That way, no one ever had to see him or smell him during his shift.
Dude, what? Yeah, there's this guy who's applying who wants to be like a night guard. No, we did like a Zoom call. He's fucking purple, but I think it's fine. Like, what? What job are you getting hired without even like seeing anyone? I guess that's the least crazy part about this.
Over time, Mike worked his way through the old restaurants, the original pizzeria, the bigger, better Freddy Fazbear's. He spent weeks there looking for clues as to his father's whereabouts, and each time at the end of his week shift, he would then set the location on fire. Remnant can't survive high temperatures after all.
Well, I'm just shocked that like they keep hiring the security guard who just commits arson and burns the place down, and then they're like, yeah, we got this new guy, and then the place burns down in a week again, and they're like, yeah, we got this new guy, and it's like, you know, obviously you got to suspend disbelief a bit. The logistics of it all are just throwing me off.
You're not gonna believe this. We found one. A real one.
Could this finally be him? Sure enough, there he was. William inside his iconic golden Bonnie springlock suit, only now it was green and decaying with age. And there they were, a small family of broken men finally reunited. He rigged the wiring inside the building to misfire, and the dry, desiccated walls erupted in flames. It is finished. Except, it was not. Somehow, through sheer force of will, Afton remained. He had survived, and Mike would need to find a new way of finishing off his father. Luckily, the solution would present itself later that year. Not from Mike, but from another victim that had been left in his father's wake. The only person who legally could bring the franchise back was Henry, but he'd largely pulled out of the franchise around the time of his father's disappearance. Something was up. Mike, doing what he did best, applied for a franchise and immediately got the job.
Dude, it's crazy he's purple. I'm sorry. It's crazy he's like purple and like basically undying or like an undead. And he's just purple. And he's just like, yeah, I'm purple. I've been purple for like a decade and I've worked at like 8 different Freddy's. Like, and he's got no bones. It's so weird.
It took a few nights, but eventually everyone was there. His father, the puppet, the robot spaghetti that had once violated his body, and his sister, now hopeless. Father, the puppet, the robot spaghetti that had once violated his body, and
what a sentence. What a sentence. The robot spaghetti that violated his body. The fucking robot spaghetti. What we found out, look, is that like, although we're watching this story unfold from the perspective of the Aftons, there's presumably a different story being written from the perspective of the murdered children, and they still are stuck in these robotic bodies with some level of consciousness.
He had been instructed to seal the doors and leave, but while he locked everything down, he didn't move on. If this was truly meant to be the end, if the remnant needed to be washed away, he needed to be a part of that.
Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be, and to you monsters trapped in the corridors. Be still. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
And with that,
ooh,
it was
what a
over.
bar.
The Afton legacy died with all of them trapped inside of a literal box. As the flames danced around the office, Mike, for the first time in decades, was happy. But William wasn't gone yet. Although the darkest pit of hell was open and waiting.
They've burned down 2 restaurants now to kill him. And you're just like, you know what? I willed me to still be here. Like, what?
Without warning, animatronics, both new and old, began to jump out at him, bite him, rip him limb from limb. The pain was immeasurable. Make it stop. Make it stop. William, for the first time, longed for death, an end to this torture.
So this is just a game, right? I'm assuming. So like sometimes I feel like, oh, that's lore. And then sometimes I feel like a game was made and you have to make it make sense in the lore. And this is one of those times where I feel like there was just a game called, I guess, Ultimate Custom Night, where William Afton is getting like especially fucked on by every single doll to ever be made. And then you have to like make that make sense in the lore.
Cassidy was so focused on taking revenge, they actually did the one thing that would be the downfall for so many others. They kept William alive. Even though fire should have destroyed the remnant that was coursing through his being, Cassidy kept William breathing, paving the way for his escape. The last 2 episodes have been about death. The death of Afton's family, the deaths of multiple children, the death of the franchise itself as Mike and Henry figuratively and literally burn it all down. Today's episode, though, and the current end of this franchise, is instead all about rebirth, the return of old characters in new forms, and the controversial rebirth of a franchise entering the next era of its story. The company was outright dissolved. Even the memories of the horrors that had happened there started to fade away in the public consciousness. The people were gone too. William was dead. Henry was gone. A whole generation of young Emilys and Aftons had lost their lives to the horrors of the pizzeria, all of them collateral damage to the man in the bunny suit. Everyone the company had ever touched was dead and gone. Well, all except one, Clara Afton. She'd been there in the early days, back when things with William were
Clara.
good, they'd had the perfect home. William had become distant, lost in his work, obsessive. She had watched him change from this irritatingly brilliant man that she had fallen in love with to a drunken monster struggling to hold himself together. She had to leave the relationship, and from there she largely faded into obscurity. A mystery from William's past, a footnote in his history, and that was fine for her. And now, as a shareholder and sole living member of the Afton family, all copyrights and trademarks of both Afton Robotics and Fazbear Entertainment passed on to her. Memories of this past life that she had long left behind. Looking at the blueprints, the contracts, the memos, she felt old wounds begin to reopen. William had always been brilliant. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. But he'd also been too blinded by
that's crazy, because William was actually the dumbest motherfucker early on. He was actually stupid as shit. He just liked bears. That was literally his whole character, is he liked bear.
I will put them all back together. She would be the one to rebuild this family, to rebuild the pieces of that shattered life, to reclaim the kids that Fazbear had stolen from her. But how? Looking at William's work now laid out before her, she knew that he had been onto something, collecting remnant, robotic humanoids, digital conscience transference. The pieces were all in place, they were just scattered. With ownership over the characters, their licenses, the technology patents, and the Fazbear name, she converted the corporation back to an LLC, a structure for smaller businesses that are usually...
I love when the lore gets into the nitty gritty of corporations and how they're registered.
From there, she would need remnant, and lots of it. Remnant was the key. To get the remnant they required, it needed scale. Dozens, hundreds of animatronics, all out there, all gathering remnant from unsuspecting customers. But to do that would require help. And with meal delivery apps being all the rage, why not an animatronic delivery service? Order one to celebrate your birthday, your Halloween party. How about a 4th of July picnic?
That's right. With the Fazbear Fun Time service, you'll never be alone again. You'll always have someone watching your back.
Was it ridiculous? Absolutely. Was it a sellout?
He's in the universe?
In a
But how are they collecting the remnant? Via murder? Is she not like... I didn't think she was a psychopath, but all of a sudden she's a psychopath now?
There was just one problem with it. No one trusted the Fazbear name. The company's brand was still mud in the public eye. So she needed to find a way to discredit the stories that had come before.
How do you
She
do
needed
that?
to win back the public's affections, reactivate
Misinformation
some nostalgia for
campaign.
the spooky stories of their childhoods. She needed a game. Struggling game developers were a dime a dozen online. So she found one. Steve just picked him out of obscurity.
Is that the actual game dev? Did he put himself in the fucking game? He put himself in the fucking lore?
Freddy Fazbear's was suddenly more popular than ever. Things were going shockingly well. Her takeover and reboot of the franchise was full and complete. Suddenly infused with cash, she built the largest, most ambitious project yet, the Mega Pizzaplex. March 2035.
2035? What is she, 100? Her husband was born in the 30s. How fucking old is she?
She'd seen down in his bunker that William had gotten very close to replicating artificial humans using animatronic technology. And so that's exactly what she would do. Rebuild her boy from the ground up using robotic parts.
She knows how to make fucking robots now. Okay.
She worked down in the bowels of the Pizzaplex, giving him life. But it was one thing to build him. It was another to help him remember his identity. He died so young, so early in their history that there was no...
He died literally 50 years before then in the 80s. Even if you put a spirit inside of him, he's going to come out and just start saying slurs. Everyone in 2035 is going to be like, whoa, your kid is problematic.
At first, he could only communicate through simple ones and zeros, then rudimentary drawings and crude letters.
Yum.
But bit by bit. Next was William. If the family was truly going to be put together, she would need him. And she knew exactly where he was, in the ruins of that old Freddy Fazbear's pizza place where Henry had trapped him. Digging through the wreckage, she found him. He was right where she thought he'd be. Seeing the putrid shell of the Springtrap suit, though, was not something she was prepared for. The rotting corpse of William Afton was disgusting.
The guy has to be mewing. Look at the jaw.
But it was the second attempt that looked like it had the potential to kill two birds with one stone. Enter Vanessa. Mrs. Afton wanted a surrogate daughter. Her darling Elizabeth would have been a young woman at this point if she had lived. And Clara wanted someone who wasn't Elizabeth but could be just like her. She started as a QA tester at Silver Parasol Games, a VR game development company that was part of her plan to bring back William. But more importantly, Vanessa checked all the correct boxes. Right age, blonde, green eyes with a fondness for flowers and the outdoors. In many ways, it was her daughter all over again. Except it wasn't just looks and personality. What really mattered was Vanessa's mind. Underconfident, coming from a broken home, motherless, able to be manipulated. Yes,
Jesus.
She would do nicely. The reborn Gregory was an expert hacker, part of the benefits of being an Afton and a robot.
Sorry, he was drawing fucking pizza going yum, and now he's a perfect hacker?
So Clara had him keeping tabs on Vanessa, hacking into her emails and trailing her therapy sessions to ensure the future Elizabeth was falling in line. But it was her last move that was the best. In a true masterpiece of poetry, she brought Vanessa over to be chief security officer at the Pizzaplex. All that was left was Michael. Poor
Mike.
Michael. The boy that killed her youngest. The one that would spend years trying to make his guilty conscience right again. A self-professed protector. While she knew she needed him to complete the family, something told her that the problem had already solved itself. Maybe it was the spirit of Michael living on as a protector, but he was there, somewhere inside of Glamrock Freddy. She could feel it. And just like that, she'd won. She'd done it.
So she didn't even do anything for Michael. She just kind of tripped into Michael by accident. Glamrock Freddy was just like kind of like Michael, and she's like, "Yo, wait, no, Michael's good. Actually, we don't have to do that one. We can skip it. Okay, that's great."
That's how it could have ended. That's how it should have ended, had it not been for a few unanticipated developments.
No.
For one, something was just wrong with the Pizzaplex. It was as though a guardian spirit of the past refused to move on. As long as her husband was around, it too would linger. Only now, it wasn't just in one body, but it was in the essence of the building itself. She had seen stories of houses built on burial grounds getting possessed by angry spirits, but she'd never assumed that it could be real.
The idea that fire somehow destroys Remnant is just dumb. It destroys Remnant if they want to go away, but they can also just be like, I ignore it, smile face, and then they just don't go away. No, sorry, I ignored it. I became a pile of wires, but now my wires have just actually gone into other bodies now. Sorry.
But a blob of living wires could be heard oozing through the walls, stealing pieces and parts of the old animatronics showcased in Rockstar Row. She could only assume that it was a byproduct of all the remnant they'd been collecting. Perhaps this thing was an amalgamation of all the darkest parts of the pizzeria's history, a collection of the hatred still housed inside these defunct endoskeletons and exosuits. As long as it was left alone, it seemed to be harmless. But if any Afton outside of Michael got too close, it would lash out wildly.
All right, okay. Wow, okay, all right. So, I pretty much understand it from William Afton's Depression-era inspiration, watching a bear for 50 cents, up until Michael, William Afton's son, burns himself in all the animatronics to free all their spirits. I follow it to there. This was confusing. I need to hop on a call, MatPat. It's time. I'm stressed out.
Are you? Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that.
I feel like I've been cramming for a test, and now I'm hoping you give me a grade. And I want to do well, but I want it to be earned. I'm going to try to be brief, okay, and concise. I'm going to give you the entire FNAF lore based on a chronological timeline from the 30s until 2035.
Wow. Okay.
I think at its core, you could just refute this right now, but I think at its core, the FNAF lore is something that needs to continue as long as new FNAF things are being made.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I would agree with that.
It's an evolving thing, right? It's not like a static thing that was made at one point and we are seeing through all the way.
Yes, and I think to your credit, I mean, you already understand the thesis of it, right? Which is FNAF lore is an entity that has changed, I would say, probably 3 solid times over the course of the franchise's history. So you, at this point, you could probably say mostly anything, and there's a chance that you're right at some point.
Okay, all right, Matt, I'm just going to jump into it. Ready?
All right, hop in, and I'll start grunting and groaning to guide your way.
This is the entirety of FNAF lore from me, Ludwig, a guy who learned about FNAF today. And it all starts with a boy named Billy in the Depression era in the 30s who liked bear. And William liked bear so much that he decided to make a bear suit restaurant. And then somebody else sees that, they yoink it, they twist it a bit. And that guy's name is Henry Emily. William gets a bit jealous, he does, and his business fails. So Henry helps him get out of bankruptcy and they become business partners. William's like, I gotta put my pedal to the metal. I wanna catch up to my business partner and my rival. I wanna learn how to make a robot. The Springtrap fucking boom! And he dies. And that's the bite of 87! William Afton was distraught. Blames Henry Emily. So he goes to their pizzeria and he notices Henry Emily's daughter outside and murders her. It's actually going really good. He's doing the murder great until the 5th murder he does. And he murders the shit out of her so hard that like everybody's like, oh, murder happened here for sure. The only thing that is done is Henry Emily's like, I have to kick you out of the business, and I'm gonna go undercover, like undercover boss as a security guard at his business, and then do more murder. While he's doing these murders, he's stuffing all the kids in all these suits, and then they shut down the place, and you would think it would be over then. But it's not. Under his house, unbeknownst to his really, really oblivious and possibly dumb children, he makes a giant fucking circus that is supposed to have a bunch of animatronics. And the day before it's supposed to open, his daughter, who usually listens to him all the time, doesn't listen to him, gets too close to one, and the fucking same bang snaps her damn neck. But the eye color changes from blue to green, which maybe entails that the soul of his daughter is now trapped within inside the animatronics. He goes to one of the abandoned places. There's a bunch of ghosts see him there, and they're mad at him. He gets into his famous bunny costume, and he dies. But does he actually die? No. Henry Emily sees William Afton's body, and he goes, nothing to see here, folks, and he leaves. And now we switch to Michael Afton, the son of William. And my dad's actually kind of like a psychopath, and they kind of trick him into getting scooped. And I don't know what that means, but the boy gets fucking scooped, and he becomes purple. And that's weird. Till Henry Emily, he's back, bitches, and he's like 100 at this point or some shit. I don't even know. He makes a new establishment, and it's to lure the souls of all of these animatronics. The new security guard happens to be Michael Afton, and he burns it down. And this beautiful speech from Henry Emily should have been the end of everybody. But the soul of Charles Emily, the son of Henry Emily, who was trapped inside the security doll, keeps William Afton alive as an act of retribution and punishment, and he's able to do more nefarious things. And then I think his wife gets involved, but I stopped actually understanding because I got annoyed.
Wow. You know the Shia LaBeouf slow clap?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing for you right now.
Really?
Right? Are the pieces clicking together? Are you seeing the light now?
I'm seeing the light up until you know what I really just fucking threw in one ear out the other is the wife. All of a sudden, that made no sense.
No, nor should it. That was me just shooting off the hip.
Okay.
That is completely my canon, honestly.
Okay, all right.
You did a fantastic job of nailing my theories. Congratulations, you done it. And I think because of that, you've probably nailed a good solid 80 to 85% of the lore. And anything that you missed is stuff that I missed. So for instance, right, like you call out the 1930s. In the most recent game, Help Wanted 2, which is a VR game, there's indication that was probably a little bit earlier in like 1970s era. But that you wouldn't have known that because I didn't do a video about that. So, that is my failing to you. So I apologize for making you look like a fool because that is ultimately my mistake.
That makes
you're only
way
as good
more
as your
sense because everybody was like 100 years old, and I'm like, how is he even alive? Dude, Matt, why are they all British? Why are they British? The kids are raised in like Utah, and they sound British. They're kids.
I know, right? I think Scott, the creator of the franchise, just found a voice actor on Fiverr that he liked and was like, hey, you sound classy and cool and a little bit menacing. Join the franchise. But yeah, no, there's no reason they should sound British. It's very strange.
All right, that's good to know. That makes me feel better.
The other big one that kind of came out in the more recent game, the sister location stuff, that underground circus.
The circus,
thing that the big circus complex under there. It seems like that probably happened much earlier in the timeline than a lot of people suspected. Maybe even concurrent with the first franchises. But other than that, man, like, you nailed it. Do you want to take over game theory now so that way I can retire in peace and you can now read the books?
Yeah, let me usurp the people who've been working there for years, please. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can find an opening for you. I think FNAF researcher #1, I think, is a great job title for you.
I will. You know what I'll do great is I will be great at pissing off the FNAF fan base, which is, something you've been inadvertently doing it. I would be directly doing it. Okay.
Great. If you're used to it, if you're comfortable with that position, then please, you've already got half the job there. You're great.
You've been a huge part of FNAF. Isn't that weird?
It is weird. It is weird. And to think and it's funny because even though I was a huge part of FNAF, I didn't hop aboard it until I didn't play the first 3 games. But I was just a lore guy. And so I was watching other people play it. I was studying it. I was looking for Easter eggs in like fan wikis and this and that. I was a latecomer. The only reason I ended up starting covering it was Halloween, and I'm like, hey, I need a Halloween episode. So I went on Twitter and I'm like, guys, do you want me to do Slender Man, which was a little bit old but a good nostalgic classic, or this new game, Five Nights at Freddy's? And overwhelmingly, Five Nights at Freddy's won the poll. And I kid you not, when I first started working on that episode, I couldn't find anything to say. And there were hints of a story there. Like, you know, there were the newspaper clippings that kind of revealed the lore to people and said like, oh, you know, people were murdered here in June and whatever. But there wasn't anything to go off. Like that was it. There was nothing else there. And so I didn't feel like I could come up with satisfying answers on that route either. Which is why I kind of kept digging until I found kind of what the first ever episode that we did of Five Nights at Freddy's was, which is the murders that happened at Chuck E. Cheese.
It's just totally coincidence, though, right?
Yeah. Purely coincidence. Well, congratulations on
thank you very much.
Passing FNAF 1. I would say FNAF 101 to 301. Congratulations.
I mean, look, I'm happy with that because people have been begging me to do this for like months, and I finally did it. And you know, I was a little stressed how it'd go, but I feel equipped with knowledge, and I'll have to play now, I think. Oh, I did so good, baby. I'm a bit of a FNAF head. I feel like in real time, my gray hairs have turned to brown because I'm so young and youthful now. Ask me about Skibbity Toilet. I know. Ask me about FNAF. We talking William Afton? He's never leaving. Feels good. Feels good, baby.